Trump administration acted earlier this week to punish Harvard University after it refused to comply with a list of demands from the federal government. Harvard says that the Trump demands were exaggerated and illegal. On Monday, Harvard University became the first university across America to refuse to comply with the Trump administration's requirements. This now sets up a showdown between the federal government and America's oldest and wealthiest university. By late Monday, federal officials said that they would freeze $2.2 billion in multi-year grants to Harvard, along with a $60 million contract. Other universities have pushed back against Trump's interference in higher education. But with Harvard's response, which called the Trump administration's demands illegal, this marked a major shift in tone for the nation's most influential school. Many others, from Columbia to Cornell, have all been criticized in recent weeks for capitulating to pressure from Trump.
When it comes to Harvard, as I said, the president has been quite clear they must follow federal law. He also wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize for the egregious anti-Semitism that took place on their college campus against Jewish American students. There were professors who said that he had engaged in discriminatory behavior against Jewish students. Of course, you had the former president of the university saying bullying and harassment depends on the context. You also had an encampment on Harvard Yard that we all saw play out before the cameras. The university failed to impose formal discipline on any students for this anti-Semitic conduct violations, including the occupation of a campus building and the disruption of classes with bullhorn.
A letter that the Trump White House sent to Harvard last week demanded that the university reduce the power of students as well as faculty over the university's affairs. It also wanted reporting of foreign students who commit campus violations immediately to be reported to the federal authorities. And controversially, it wanted to bring in an outside party to ensure that each academic department has a diverse viewpoint. Now, the Trump administration did not exactly define what it meant by viewpoint diversity, but it has generally referred to seeking a range of political views, including conservative views, which they feel were sparse in elite colleges. Since taking office in January, Trump has aggressively targeted the high-end universities of America, saying that his office is investigating dozens of schools as he moves to eradicate diversity efforts. But the Trump White House says all of this is to curb what it calls rampant anti-Semitism on campus. Officials have suspended hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funds for research across universities in America. The Trump administration has taken a particular interest in a short list of America's most prominent Ivy League schools. First, they took aim at Columbia University, then other members of the Ivy League, including Harvard, Brown, and Princeton. The announcement of the funding freeze was issued by members of a federal anti-Semitism task force that's been the brains behind the effort to target these elite schools. Harvard, for its part, has been under intense pressure from its own students and faculty to be more forceful in resisting Trump's encroachment on the university and more broadly on higher education itself. The Trump administration back in March said that it was examining about $250 million in federal contracts that were given to Harvard University. And in addition to that, another $8.7 billion in what it describes as multi-year grants given from the federal government to the Harvard University. The announcement went on to suggest that Harvard had not done enough to curb anti-Semitism on campus. At the time, though, it was very vague about what the university could do to satisfy Trump's concerns. Last month, more than 800 faculty members at Harvard signed a letter urging the university to mount a coordinated opposition to these anti-democratic attacks. The government's letter to Harvard last week demanded an extraordinary set of changes that would have entirely reshaped the university. It would have also ended up conceding an unprecedented degree of control over Harvard's operations to the federal government. These changes would have violated principles that are held dear on college campuses, most importantly, academic freedom. Some of the actions that the Trump administration has demanded from Harvard include conducting plagiarism checks on all current and prospective faculty members, sharing all its hiring data with the Trump administration, subjecting itself to audits of its hiring while reforms are being implemented all the way through to 2028, providing all admissions data to the federal government, information on both rejected as well as admitted applicants sorted by race, nationality of origin, grade point average or GPA, and performance on tests. Immediately shutting down any program related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Last month, after the Trump administration stripped $400 million in federal funds from Columbia University, Columbia agreed to major concessions that were demanded by Trump's team. It agreed to place its Middle Eastern Studies department under a different oversight. It also agreed to create a new security force of 36 special officers who are empowered to arrest and remove students from campus. Trump and his top aides are exerting control on the country's top colleges by threatening to withhold huge sums of federal research money. They want to shift the ideological tilt of the higher education system, which they perceive as hostile to conservatives and more inclined towards liberals. Trump's effort was energized by the campus protests against Israel's response to the October 2023 terrorist attack by Hamas. These were demonstrations during which Jewish students on campus were sometimes harassed. Soon after taking office, Trump formed the task force to combat anti-Semitism, which is scrutinizing these leading universities for potential civil rights violations. And this is serving as an entry point to pressurize schools to reassess some of their policies and give away some of their freedoms. This is backed by the influence of Stephen Miller, who is Trump's deputy chief of staff and who is the architect of much of Trump's anti-immigration agenda. The process that has been taken on by Mr. Miller and his team is a bit opaque, but it is leading to upending of campuses nationwide. It is leaving elite institutions hanging. They have been long accustomed to operating with academic freedom from Washington, but now they are all reeling from a blunt political attack. But it's not just a political attack, this is at the cusp of a much bigger cultural battle which the Trump administration wants to take out on liberals. The task force headed by Miller includes about 20 senior Trump administration officials, most of whom the government has not publicly identified. They say their lives could be potentially at risk if they were to be publicly identified. So this is the first season of Trump versus education, which has just begun. It certainly doesn't seem to be making American colleges great again.